Hey, good morning, everyone. So we are Group 1, and our topic is about revised Pharisee Code, Presidential Decree 705, as amended by Presidential Decree 1559 and Executive Order 277 and Republic Act 7161. So for Group 1, we have our members, Ma'am Dinesh Ninia Machuelos, Mr. Reynan Milongo, and yours truly, Arlene Ibanez. So, Presidential Decree 705, or otherwise known as the Revised Pharisee Code of the Philippines, it is a comprehensive legal framework that governs the management, utilization, protection, rehabilitation, and development of forest lands in the Philippines. It was enacted in 1975, revising the previous Forestry Reform Code of the Philippines, or the Presidential Decree number 389. So the primary goal of this revised forestry code is to ensure the sustainable use and conservation of the country's forest resources, recognizing their vital role in providing a range of ecosystem services, including timber production, watershed protection, biodiversity conservation, and climate regulation. So what are the features or highlights of this code? First, we have the land classification and survey. This code mandates a comprehensive classification and survey of all lands of the public domain, categorizing them into agricultural, industrial, residential, resettlement, mineral, timber, grazing, and other classes. So when you say agricultural, so it refers to the land used for raising crops and for grazing and raising animals. So when you say industrial, these are land used for manufacturing, refining of products. So for residential, these are land used for housing and homes. So for resettlement, these are lands used for relocation. When you say mineral, so it means those are lands with existing minerals which are usually held by the government. So timber, or what we call forest land, so it refers to forest. So grazing, it refers to portion of the public domain characterized by a predominant growth of grass species. So next, this code establishes criteria for determining areas needed for forest purposes, including those with good residual stocking, bridge stocks, and strips along waterways. It also emphasizes the importance of clearly marking and maintaining boundaries between forest lands and alienable or disposable lands. Second feature is multiple use and sustained yield management. So it promotes the multiple use concept, recognizing that forest lands can provide various benefits, including timber, water, wildlife, and recreation. It emphasizes the need to evaluate and weigh the different uses of forest lands before allowing any utilization or activity. It advocates for sustained yield management, which aims to achieve a balance between growth and harvest of forest products to ensure long-term productivity. The third feature is about licensing and authorization. It requires licenses or permits for any utilization, exploitation, occupation, or activity within forest lands, including timber harvesting, wood processing, and grazing. It establishes different types of authorizations, such as license agreements, leases, licenses, and permits, each with specific terms and conditions. It emphasizes that timber licenses are not contracts, but privileges granted by the state, subject to specific conditions and subject to revocation. Next highlights or features criminal offenses and penalties. This codifies various offenses related to forest land use, which include illegal logging, possession of forest products without proper documentation, unlawful occupation, destruction of forest lands, and vandalism in national parks. It also prescribes penalties ranging from fines to imprisonment, depending on the severity of the offense. It includes provisions for confiscation of illegally obtained forest products and equipment used in the commission of offenses. Okay, next highlight, we have the organization and its jurisdiction. This code established the Bureau of Forest Development, which is now known as the Forest Management Bureau. It is the primary agency responsible for implementing the provisions of this code. What is the jurisdiction of this bureau? It has jurisdiction over all forest lands, grazing lands, and forest reservations, including watershed reservations. This code outlines the rules and responsibilities of other government agencies involved in forest management, such as the Department of Environment and the Natural Resources, or the DENR. So, since Presidential Decree 705 is amended by Presidential Decree number 1559, so what are the amendments? So, these are the salient points of this Presidential Decree. It was issued on June 11, 1978. It amended Presidential Decree 705. So what it aims to strengthen the revised Forestry Code of the Philippines by making it more responsive to contemporary realities and government policies regarding forest development, conservation, and the rationalization of the wood industry. So what are some of its amendments? So it amended the Section 3 of the Code, providing more detailed definition of key terms like public forest, permanent forest, forest lands, grazing lands, and etc. So it is one of its amendments. Next, it also amended Section 11 to emphasize the importance of training and education for forestry personnel. Aside from that, it also amended Section 14, which addresses the management of forest lands under pasture leases, classifying them as grazing lands, while maintaining the Bureau's authority over their administration and disposition. It also amended Section 19, which reinforced the multiple use concept, requiring an evaluation of the various benefits of forest lands before allowing any utilization or activity. It also specified that critical watersheds, national parks, and experimental forests would not be subject to commercial logging or grazing operations. Okay. Next, it also required the clear marking and maintenance of boundaries between permanent forests and alienable or disposable lands. It aimed to ensure that the protection of forest areas and prevent encroachment. It also encouraged greater involvement of the private sector in forest management protection and development. This was achieved through the concept of joint or co-management, allowing private entities to collaborate with the government in managing forest resources. It also recognized the importance of integrating forest development programs with the government's rural development initiatives, which aim to ensure that forest resources contributed to the economic well-being of rural communities. It also aims to bolster the forestry code by making it more responsive to the evolving needs of forest development and conservation. This included a focus on rationalizing the wood industry and promoting sustainable practices. So another amendment is the Executive Order number 277, which was issued on July 25, 1987 by then President Corazon C. Aquino. It amended Section 868 of the Presidential Decree number 705, or otherwise known as the Revised Forestry Code of the Philippines. And it also added Section A and Section B of Section 68A and Section 68B. It aims to conserve the remaining forest resources of the country for the benefit and welfare of the present and the future generation of Filipinos. So what is the salient points, or what are the salient points? For Section 68, cutting, gathering, and or collecting timber or other forest products without license. So any person who shall cut, gather, collect, remove timber or other forest products from any forest lands or timber from alienable or disposable public land or from private land without any authority, or possess timber or other forest products without the legal documents are required under existing forest laws and regulations shall be punished with the penalties imposed under 309 and 310 of the revised penal code. So provided that in the case of partnerships, associations, or corporations, the officers who order the cutting, gathering, collection, or possession shall be liable, and if such officers are aliens, they shall, in addition to the penalty, be deported without further proceedings on the part of the Commission on Immigration and Deportation. The court shall further order the confiscation in favor of the government of the timber or any forest products cut, gathered, collected, removed, or possessed, as well as the machinery, equipment, implements, and tools illegally used in the area where the timber or forest products are found. So it added Section 68A, which states that administrative authority of the department head or his duly authorized representative to order confiscation. So in all cases of violations of this code or other forest laws, rules, and regulations, the department head or his duly authorized representative may order the confiscation of any forest products illegally cut, gathered, removed, or possessed, or abandoned, and all conveyances used either by land, water, or air in the commission of the offense, and to dispose the same in accordance with pertinent laws, regulations, or policies on the matter. So Section 68B, it included rewards to informants. So any person who shall provide any information leading to the apprehension and conviction of any offender for any violation of this code or other forest laws, rules, and regulations, or confiscation of forest products shall be given an award in the amount of 20% of the proceeds of the confiscated forest products. So these are the amendments. So nanay reward ang informants. Then, lastly, the Republic Act 7161 also amended PD 705. It was enacted on October 10, 1991. So it amended certain provisions of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1977 as amended, and Presidential Decree number 705 as amended. So also known as the Revised Forestry Code of the Philippines. So what are the salient points of RA 7161? So first, it increased in the forest charges on timber and other products. So isakahan ang charges. The goal was to raise the revenue generated from the extraction of timber and other forest products for both government operations and forest conservation efforts. Next, the law also made amendments to Presidential Decree number 705, which is enhancing the management and regulation of forest resources in the country. So the increase in forest charges is part of these changes, aiming to ensure better fiscal support for environment protection and sustainable forestry practices. So the Act incorporated certain sections of the National Internal Revenue Code of the 1977 to strengthen the provisions related to the taxation of forest products. So we have here cases. So first we have Felipe Ismael Jr. versus ENCO Incorporated versus the Deputy Executive Secretary. the Secretary of Environment and Natural Resources, the Director of the Bureau of Forest Development and Twin Peaks Development and Realty Corporation, JR number 79538, decided October 18, 1990. So what is this case all about? So this case involved a timber license agreement issued to Felipe Ismael Jr. and Co-Incorporated, which is the petitioner in this case, which was cancelled in 1983 during the Marcos administration. The petitioner sought reinstatement of this timber license agreement. The revocation of the new timber license agreement issued to Twin Peaks Development and Realty Corporation, which is the private respondent in this case, and the possession of logs in the concession area. So the court acknowledged the growing global concern over forest depletion and 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 the need for effective government action to conserve natural resources. So the court emphasized that timber licenses are not contracts, but merely privileges granted by the state and can be amended, modified, replaced, or rescinded when the national interest require it. While there is a desire to harness natural resources to amass profit and to meet the country's immediate financial requirements, the more essential need to ensure future generations of Filipinos of their survival in a viable environment demands effective and circumspect actions from the government to check further denudation of whatever remains of the forest lands. Nothing less is expected of the government in view of the clear constitutional command to maintain a balanced and helpful ecology. So in time, the legal precepts highlighted in the foregoing discussion more than suffice to justify the court's refusal to interfere in the DNR evaluation of timber licenses and permits issued under the previous regime, or to preempt the adoption of appropriate corrective measures by the department. Nevertheless, the court cannot help but express its concerns regarding alleged irregularities in the issuance of timber license agreements to a number of logging concessionaires. So in this case, the court held that the government can revoke timber licenses agreements since these are not contracts but mere privileges. So for case number 2, we have heirs of Amanatige versus the Director of Forestry, decided November 29, 1983. So this case involved a dispute over the ownership of lot number 885 of the Cadastral Survey of Pilar Capiz, which had an area of 645,703 square meters. Lucky Bore and Melquiades Bore filed an application for registration of title to the land, but the heirs of Jose Amunatique opposed the application, claiming ownership of a portion of the land. The Director of Forestry also opposed the application, arguing that the land was mangrove swamp classified as forest land and part of the public domain. So the Supreme Court upheld the decision of the Court of Appeals, finding that the land in question was indeed classified as forest land and cannot be subject to private ownership. So the court reasoned that the classification of land as forest land is not dependent on its current physical appearance, but rather on its legal status as determined by the government. The court further stated that possession of forest lands, no matter how long, cannot ripen into private ownership. So Supreme Court ruled that a forested area classified as forest land of the public domain does not lose its classification simply because it has been stripped of its forest cover.
Okay, I will discuss about the case of Director of Forestry, Forest Station Warden, District 13, Bureau of Forestry versus Honorable Emmanuel M. Munoz as judge in the Court of First Instance, Bulacan, Branch 1. In this case, Piadico claims to be the owner of 72,000 hectares of land at Bulacan, Antipolo, and Alban. Evidenced by Titulo de Propiedad number 4136 and deed of absolute. Piadico applied for registration as private woodland, some 10,000 hectares of this land. A certificate was issued to Piadico on such registration, situated in Norsagaray, San Jose del Norte. The controversy in this case began when Acting Director of Forestry, Apolino F. Rivera, cancelled its certificate and required Piadico to surrender the original certificate to him on the ground that it violated forestry rules and regulations for cutting trees within the Angat and Marikina watershed reservations, expressly excluded from the said certificate. Piadico was later requested to desist from conducting its logging operation inside or outside the area and to refrain from removing logs already cut unless they have been scaled and properly invoiced by forestry officers. So Piadico applied for the renewal of the certificate of private woodland registrations, which would nearly expire but was denied. Piadico was informed that its Titulo de Propiedad was not registrable under Forestry Administration Order number 12-2, which took effect on January 1, 1963. The amendment of Forestry Administrative Order by Forestry Administrative Order 12-2 consisted in the omission of one paragraph, Section 1829 of the Revised Administrative Code, granted by the Spanish sovereignty in the islands and duly recognized as valid titles under the existing laws. So, Piadico's position is that such amendment contravenes said Section 1829, which does not specify the titles that are registrable thereunder, and that it is diametrically opposed to the opinion of the Attorney General on October 15, 1919, which ruled that a royal title issued in September 1896 and inscribed in the registry of property within a year after its issuance is valid, and therefore its owner is entitled to the benefits of Section 1829. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled that Spanish titles are quite dissimilar to administrative and judicial titles under the present system. Although evidences of ownership, the Spanish titles may be lost through prescription. They are therefore neither indispensable nor imprescriptible. The law in this jurisdiction, both under the present sovereignty and the previous Spanish regime, is that ordinary prescription of 10 years may take place against a title recorded in the registry of property. In virtue of another title as recorded, an extraordinary prescription of 30 years will run, even without need of title or of good faith. For possession for long period fixed by law, the unquestionable foundation of the prescription of ownership weakens and destroys the force and value of the best possible title to the thing possessed by one who is not the owner thereof. The exception, of course, is the Torrens title, expressly recognized to be indefeasible and imprescriptible, which should not have been allowed registration in the first place. Obviously, registrations thereof can never be renewed. So the next case is the Republic of the Philippines petitioner versus Celestina Naguat respondent. In the case, Celestina Naguat filed an application for registration of title to 4 parcels of land located in Panan, Putulan, Zambales. The application alleged that she is the owner of the said property or parcels of land, having acquired them by purchase from its previous owners and their predecessors in interest, who have been in possession thereof for more than 30 years, and that, to the best of her knowledge, said last suffer no mortgage or encumbrances of whatever kind, nor is there any person having any interest, legal or equitable, or in possession thereof. Petitioner Republic opposed on the ground that neither the applicant nor her predecessors in interest have been in open, continuous, exclusive, and notorious possession and occupation of the land in question since June 12, 1945 or prior thereof. Considering that the fact she has not established the lands in question have been disqualified from forest or timber zone to alienable and disposable property. In the case of Bar, the Supreme Court ruled that a forest area classified as forest land of the public domain does not lose such classification simply because loggers or settlers have stripped it of its forest cover. Parcels of land classified as forest land may actually be covered with grass or planted to crops by kaingin, cultivators, or other farmers. Forest lands do not have to be on mountains or in out-of-the-way places. The classification is merely descriptive of its legal nature or status and does not have to be descriptive of what the land actually looks like. For a public forest land reserves to be subject for private appropriation, it requires an express and positive act of the government that it will become a part of the alienable and disposable agricultural lands of public domain. Occupation in the concept of an owner cannot ripen into private ownership and be registered to as title. The next case is Honorable Gerson Alvarez, substituted by Honorable Felicia S. Beson in her capacity as Secretary of Department of Environment and Natural Resources versus PICOP Resource Incorporated. In the case of Bar, PICOP was granted the member license agreement number 43 covering an area of 75,545 hectares in Surigao del Sur, Agusan del Sur, Compostela Valley, and Davao Oriental to terminate on April 25, 2002. On December 23, 1999, DENR promulgated DENR Administrative Order number 99-53 mandating the conversion of the member license agreement into IFMA that is primarily aimed and sustain the raw materials for the continuous operation of the integrated wood processing plant of the company. Pursuant to this, PICOP signified its intention to convert its TLA into an integrated forest management agreement. A performance evaluation team was created to conduct performance evaluation indicating violations by PICOP such as the non-submission of its 5-year forest protection plan and 7-year reforestation plan as required by the DENR rules and regulations. Also, there are alleged unpaid and overdue forest charges of PICOP. It was the position of the DENR members that PICOP application for the IMA conversion should undergo the process as provided. The Secretary of DENR claims that further processing of PICOP's application for the conversion of TLA cannot proceed until PICOP complies with the requirement insisting that the conversion of its TLA has been completed. PICOP filed application for mandamus against the DENR Secretary Alvarez before the RTC of Quezon City. The RTC rendered a decision granting the PICOP's petition for mandamus. However, in this case, the Supreme Court ruled that since timber licenses are not contracts, the non-impairment clause, which read Section 10, no law impairing the obligation of contract shall be passed, cannot be invoked. The precedent warranty cannot in any manner be construed as a contractual undertaking assuring PICOP of exclusive possession and enjoyment of its concession areas. Such an interpretation would result in the complete abdication by the state in favor of PICOP. The sovereign power to control as provides the exploration, development, and utilization of the natural resources in the area. The exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources shall be under the full control and supervision of the state. The state may directly undertake such activities, or it may enter into co-production, joint venture, or production sharing agreement with Filipino citizens, or corporations or associations at least 60% of whose capital is owned by the citizens.
For continuation, I am assigned to discuss 2 cases relevant to our topic. It's Wenceslao Benson versus the Director of Forestry et al. So this is an appeal from the order dated January 20, 1965 of the then Court of First Instance of Manila, Branch 7 in civil case number 56813. This is a petition of certiorari, prohibition, and mandamus with preliminary prohibitory injunction. Sometime in the facts of the case, sometime in April 1961, the Bureau of Forestry issued notice number 2087 advertising for public bidding a certain tract of public forest land situated in Ilonggapo, Zambales, provided tenders were received on or before May 22, 1961. The public forest land consisting of 6,480 hectares is located within the former U.S. Naval Reservation, comprising 7,252 hectares of timberland, which was turned over by the United States government to the Philippine government. On May 5, 1961, petitioner appellant submitted his application in due form after paying the necessary fees and posting file required by thereof. And on August 3, 1961, Secretary Portage of Agriculture and Natural Resources sustained findings and recommendations of the Director of Forestry and concluded that it would be beneficial to the public interest if the area is made available for exploitation under certain conditions. The conditions was the issue in this case lies on the question whether or not the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources acted with grave abuse of discretion, considering that the petitioner was denied of the equal protection of the laws by depriving him of his constitutional right to property without due process of law, and in effect by impairing the obligation of contract. So in this case, the Supreme Court held that the granting of license does not create irrevocable rights, neither is it property or property rights. The state has inherent power enabling to prohibit all things hurtful to comfort, safety, and welfare of the society. SC further elaborated that assuming the timber license is valid, it can be validly revoked. A timber license is an instrument by which the state regulates the utilization and disposition of forest resources to the end that public welfare is promoted. Thus, a timber license is not a contract within the purview of the due process clause. It is only a license or privilege which can be validly withdrawn whenever dictated by public interest or public welfare, as in this case. Second case is Mustang Lumber Incorporation as petitioner versus Honorable Court of Appeals et al. So in this case, the petitioner, a domestic corporation with principal office at Juan Luna Street, Tondo, Manila, and has a lumber yard at Fortune Street, Valenzuela, Metro Manila, was duly registered as a lumber dealer with Bureau of Forest Development, BFD, under certificate of registration number NRD-4-092590-0469. And that such permit was about to expire on September 25, 1990. However, on April 1, 1990, acting on an information that a huge stockpile of Nara breeches, shorts, and slabs were seen inside the lumberyard of the petitioner in Valenzuela, Metro Manila. The said organized a team of foresters and policemen and sent it to conduct surveillance of the said lumberyard. In the course thereof, the team members saw coming out from the lumberyard of the petitioner's truck loaded with Lawan and Almacigan lumber of assorted sizes and dimensions. Since the driver could not produce the required invoices and transport documents, the team seized the truck together with its cargo and impounded them at DENR compound at Quezon City. The team was unable to gain entry to the premises because of the refusal of the owner for them to come in. This consolidated case stemmed from disputed seizures of lumber by the DENR from Mustang Lumber, and the sequence began on April 1, 1990, with a team responding to information about illegal lumber stockpiles, seized a truck leaving Mustang Lumber Yard without necessary documents. Further administrative seizure took place on April 4, 1990 due to Mustang Lumber's failure to produce the requisite documentation for their lumber stockpile. Multiple legal actions ensued, and the company initiated 2 civil cases challenging the seizures and the suspension of its permit. Meanwhile, the DENR, through Attorney Robles, filed a criminal charge against V. Chuy Po, Mustang Lumber's general manager, for illegal possession of approximately 200,000 board feet of lumber. The case was eventually quashed by RTC for not ostensibly constituting a crime under the relevant forestry laws. Appeals followed the decision of these cases, ultimately leading the Supreme Court to consolidate and review them due to their interrelatedness. So the issues were whether the possessions of lumber without the necessary legal documents constitutes an offense under Section 68 of PB number 705, as amended EO number 277, whether the seizures conducted by DENR were legal, whether the suspension of subsequent actions against Mustang Lumber permit were procedurally and substantively valid, and whether DENR and the CA's interpretations extending the coverage of forest products to include lumber under 705 were correct. In its decision, the Supreme Court, the ruling of this case, the Supreme Court held that the possession of lumber without the legal documents is indeed punishable under Section 68 of PD number 705. Countering the ruling of RTC, the court clarified that timber encompasses both raw and processed forms, thus including lumber. The court justified the warrantless seizures of lumber and truck, applying exceptions to the requirement for a search warrant because the seizures involved moving vehicles and were conducted under a validly issued search warrant. The SC found that the DENR suspension of Mustang Lumber's permit and subsequent confiscation of lumber as legally and procedurally correct based on existing laws and regulations. And it affirmed the applicability of PD number 705 to the possession of lumber, overriding the trial court's interpretation that excluded lumber from the provision's coverage. The doctrine herein is that the Supreme Court reinforced the principle that lumber falls within the scope of timber or forest products under Section 68 of PD number 705 as amended, thus subjecting possession thereof without the necessary legal documentation to criminal penalties. It emphasized a broad interpretation towards the comprehensive protection of forest resources against unlawful exploitation. So that would be all for our reporting, and I hope you gained something from that. Thank you very much.